Are you happy in your relationships? Not just your relationships with your significant other, but your relationships with food, with your relationships with money, with your relationships with everything on this planet we are in relationship with. Are you happy? Whether you are or you aren't, I can guarantee you that this episode is for you. So for those of you listening, as you know, I'm Leslie Urbis. I'm a registered dietitian and a personal trainer, and I am a selfless overachiever in recovery here, helping women and sometimes an occasional man to get out of the selfless overachieving we have conditioned ourselves to be in, and finally wholly embrace ourselves as who we truthfully are. So today on the show, I have somebody that's going to speak to something really up that alley. So Christy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Leslie. Thank you so much for having me. I am great, albeit a little bit stressed, but I am otherwise doing great. I will survive it. Everything is temporary and we're moving through it, and it's going to be fantastic.
I love it. I love it. So we were talking before the show really about relationships and loving relationships. And you said something that really stood out to me, which was I was afraid to be alone with myself, because that really is different than just being alone. Like you could be alone in a room and be completely fine because you're not alone with yourself. Or you could be alone in a room and not be fine because you really don't know where you're at, right? Okay. So speak more to this about you were afraid to be alone with yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and when I speak of this, I was in relationships, so I actually wasn't very often physically alone. I also had three small children. So anyone with children knows you are rarely
Mhm.
alone, not even in the washroom, right?
Mhm.
So this feeling, this sense of feeling alone with myself, that I was terrified, really meant that I could not just be alone with my thoughts. Really, that's what it boiled down to, because my thoughts were so overwhelming that I just couldn't sit with them. It was terrifying. And so when I was in this phase of life, first of all, I thought that my external world was creating it. I didn't actually realize the power that I had to shift it. And that's the tricky thing about being in the survival mode, right? Is that we often can't see the reality for what it is because we are just very much in our survival reactions, right? And so when I was in my second marriage, and I wasn't happy. The dynamics were not very healthy. So it really was not a safe space for me to be myself. And to touch on what you said earlier, really, I found myself very much in people pleasing patterns and trying to, create the outcomes that I really wanted by exerting my will on the world around me. And it wasn't working, right? I was constantly chasing the next thing to make me feel better, avoiding the things that didn't make me feel better, like my inner thought life. And none of it was working. I just kept spinning my wheels. And so at one point, I sort of had this aha moment, and it was really interesting because up until then, I was complaining and blaming and waiting and wishing for, a knight in shining armor to come and save me, or for my partner to change, or my circumstances to shift, or the kids to grow up, and, anything and everything except for me, focusing on me. And I had this moment, it was like, holy shit. I'm the common denominator in literally every one of my problems, like every one of them. There I am in the center of it, right? And that can be a scary realization for a lot of people. And of course, my mind was like, what have you done? But just for a moment, because I was like, oh, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to actually use this aha. Because the truth is, I'm also the common denominator, not in all my solutions, right? I'm the creator of those potential solutions. And so when I made that shift, when I stopped trying to run away, which I actually literally took up running, running marathons and ultra marathons, and running away from my own inner thought life. When I made that aha moment, everything shifted because I started focusing on the one thing that I actually could change instead of focusing on all of the other things that I really had no direct ability to control, right? And so in this attempt to control the way that I was feeling, I was actually not, I was giving away all of my power. So I reclaimed my power, which you can't really give it away, but you can absolutely act as though you've given it away. And that's where I was at. And I decided there's more to the story than this. And I don't know how far we'll get back into the details, but I decided that that relationship was just not a fit for me, and I chose myself. in that moment, I realized my kids didn't need me to be some kind of perfect mom trying to hold it together and create something just to avoid having a quote unquote broken family. They needed me to be whole. They needed me to stop doing all of this stuff to try and change everything else. They needed me to step up and love myself, to show them by going first how to create a healthy life and love and relationships. Because honestly, the thought when I realized it, that my children might create the same kind of relationships when they grow up because that's their normal, that's their expectation, that's what they've been modeled. It sat me on my ass, really, because I was like, oh, actually, this is not what I want for the future generations, right? This is not what I want for my children. And so I ended up leaving that relationship, finding the most amazing relationship in a sort of full circle thing. And I actually talk about this in one of my other books that I published earlier this year. It was an anthology, but my story is in there about how I met my partner while running a marathon. And so it kind of came full circle. And now I know what I need to do to create those healthy, loving relationships. And that's what I'm focused on sharing with everyone else.
I love that. So what do you teach them, or what did that book or any of your books talk about in order to do that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, here's one of the things that I say regularly. You don't have a relationship problem. You have an identity problem, which is just to say that you don't know who you are. You're not standing in your power, right? You think the problems are external, but the truth is the ability to shift it comes from within, not from without. And so it's ultimately about unlearning, about releasing and forgetting all that you are not, right? Setting down the masks and stop trying to be what everyone else says you're supposed to be or shooting on yourself, and actually just stepping into all that you already are. And you're whole. You're a whole human. Sometimes we've just hidden away parts of ourselves. And so we've blocked ourselves from operating from that sense of wholeness. My next book that's coming out really soon is called Love Unstuck. And it is ultimately about creating a loving, healthy relationship with yourself first. It is about relationships with other people. And of course, I dive into all of the skills and tools required to create healthy interactions with other people. But it starts with you. And so my focus is on helping you to be the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with instead of the one that you're trying to run away from.
I love it. Yeah, definitely. I think people don't really realize that they're just running away from themselves, or
I didn't.
yeah, I mean, that's a conversation I have with my husband frequently because I do a lot of personal development, and I'm not saying that he doesn't, but in a very different way for what he does for a living. And other day I was just looking at him and I was just like, I just don't want to have our parents' marriage. And he was like, what does that mean? We're nothing like our parents. I was like, we are, in a way. I understand what he's thinking of like the big things in our parents' marriages, but it was something where like he wasn't really seeing that. And then we FaceTimed his dad later, and his dad did something and he just looked at me and he was like, fine, I get it.
Yeah.
Right? It was just like, I get it. I'm hearing you finally on this level, that it wasn't like I was taking him out. It was that I was finally saying like, I don't want to do it as well, but it's the normal that you're raised with. So you just assume. It's sort of like, I become a mom, this is what happens. I become this, right? Like I become a mom, so thus I have to be extremely tired. I have to be fatigued. I have to be angry. I have to complain about my kids. You will never hear me do those things, right? And why? Because it's all coming from within. In the beginning, I did. And then I was like, why? I love these people. Like I love these people more than anything in my life, right? And so it really had to come from within me to be like, that was just how things are said. And now it's all me choosing to say, this is how I will say it. Even if it makes me slightly on the outside of those that I knew the longest in my life, right?
Yeah, it's tricky when we really truly step into who we are and set those intentions of what we want to create in our life. The people who are intimidated by that will potentially fall away, some of them, or it might make those relationships more strained. And the relationships that you're really meant to have, like those ones that really truly lift you up and make you feel alive, can only happen. I truly believe you can only feel true unconditional love and acceptance when you're being fully yourself, because otherwise you're hiding away these little bits of you I'm not saying you're being inauthentic by hiding them away, but you're not fully expressing your authenticity when you're doing so. And when you're not, other people, when they do express love for you, there's always going to be like this niggling part of you that's like, well, they don't know, this part of me that I'm protecting over here, right? So there's always this gap in what we're able to receive because we're not actually putting our full authentic self out there. And until we do, we're just missing a little bit of the love that we truly deserve. And so my work is ultimately an invitation into being that authentic version of you that finds your true people, that creates those connections that really truly light you on fire, because that's what you're here to do. I believe we're the divine having a human experience, and this is your opportunity to experience whatever you want: adventure, fun, passion, leaving a legacy that lights you up. That's what you're here to do, not to just follow the rules and do what everyone else says you're supposed to do and be, and guessing, who you should be in order for other people to like you and for you to fit in. What we really want is to belong. And that involves us being our whole authentic selves. Otherwise, we're just going to fall short of that mark.
Yeah, totally. I love it. So where can they find this book?
Yeah, well, the book will be available on Amazon November 18th, and it will be available in audiobook at some point a little further down the road, because I could not squeeze that in just yet, as I like to read my own audiobooks. I feel like my work is like a conversation with me. It is me just speaking to my friend and sharing what I've learned so that maybe they can take a slightly easier and quicker road to the destination that they want. Maybe just lighten it just a little bit. That is my hope. And, through the books, through the podcast, I just want to share what I've learned along the way, because it was not always easy. It was, I like to say, a messy, fucking beautiful adventure, because it's messy and it's also so beautiful. Just like parenthood, right? It's messy and it's beautiful because there's so much love at the foundation. And ultimately, it's an invitation to join me on this messy and beautiful adventure. Through building a relationship with yourself, you literally can change the world around you, not just your tiny world, but like the bigger world. So, this changes for me, for you, the people in your immediate world, and then for the world, because that ripples out. It makes such a huge impact. And we just often miss it because we're trying to make the big impact out there. And we miss that embodying the wisdom that we know of, taking those learned experiences, shifting ourselves, and then operating from this now more knowledgeable viewpoint changes our life and our whole, perception of reality.
I love it. That's absolutely fabulous. So the link to that book will be right here below this video. So you can go grab it. I'm excited for that.
Loveunstuck.com.
There you go. That's even easier. Loveunstuck.com. That is fabulous. I think so many can resonate with that. So is there any final parting words you want to leave them with?
I always just like to leave people with a little bit of an encouragement. And this time I just want to remind you that you're already enough. You can step off the hamster wheel of the endless healing and self-improvement and sit in your wholeness. Because in this space of wholeness, instead of having to fix yourself or having to get better or be someone else, you simply get to be. And then from this state of wholeness, this whole beingness, you can evolve, you can grow, you can learn. And it just feels so much better because it's coming from this place of abundance rather than this place of brokenness, right? I often say you're not broken, you're human, right? You don't need to be fixed. You just need to recognize the whole human that you already are. You don't have to become someone else. You just have to be you.
I love it. That's a fabulous way to end it. So we will end it there, saying be you. Of course, for those of you watching, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, have a fit and fabulous day. Being just you. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.